Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John, and most of you know who this is. This is Large Marge, and in this video I'm going to take on painting her. I must say originally I was not intending to do a paint job on this machine, and many of you suggested it, pressured me into it, peer pressured me, and I just have to say I hate you all for that. I am now dreading this. Obviously I'm just kidding, but this thing is huge. This is going to take a very long time and an awful lot of work, and hopefully I'm going to be able to do a decent job of it. Now, I'm not going to try to do a perfect, certainly I'm not sandblasting this thing down to bare metal and starting from scratch. I'm going to try to make it look decent. We're going to do a quality farm paint job on this. That's what it's going to be. Now, I have bought a new paint sprayer. This machine is way too big to try to do with rattle cans. I'd go through like 50 of them. This is one of those air-powered sprayers with the little canister on top. I'll let you know which one I bought and give you my thoughts on it as I go through it all. So, I've decided I'm basically going to paint this thing in stages. The first thing I want to do is the boom. Then I'm going to come over here and do the cab and everything. And then, excuse me. And then finally I'm going to do the undercarriage. What color am I going to paint it? I'm going with original, but we're doing some extra touches that's going to make it unique. Original for a couple of reasons. You know, I think at this point I've tried to restore the machine to original. I've tried to restore the machine to its original state as much as possible, and I'm not going to paint inside under all the belly pans and everything, and that's already the original color. I think sticking with original is going to be easier. I think it's going to look good. It's also going to make resale when that comes, which will be many years down the road, a lot easier. I am certainly not going to paint this thing again just to sell it. And if I paint it some crazy color, I think that's probably going to make people, less interested in buying it.
You know, as much as I dislike painting, I have to say while editing this video, there are parts that are really satisfying to watch the transformation take place. I think you'll like it too. Let me know in the comments. Nope, it really won't fit. No, I didn't notice that crack yet, but I was surprised at how much the paint is just blasting off of this thing. I've power washed the body of the machine before and the paint stayed on that, and it's staying on this cylinder, but for whatever reason, it's just not adhered very well to the boom. In spite of looking for quite some time, I was not able to find replacement decals for this machine. So before doing this, I took careful measurements of everything.
Well, already, wasn't really expecting this. Because I power washed down there, and that paint didn't all come off. We'll get it. Just gonna take a while. Love power washing. Man, so we're already off to a good start. I thought this was going to take me an hour just to, power wash the moss and loose dirt off, but instead I'm ripping a bunch of paint off. Kind of makes me think this thing has been repainted before, but I don't get it. The primer is like bulletproof, but the paint just peels off in some areas. In others, it's very well adhered. I don't know. I know how to paint houses. I don't know much about painting equipment that sits out in the sun like this, and maybe this is just what you expect with 40-year-old paint. I've made quite a mess. That's pretty good, and I'm tempted to just roll on now, but I really don't want to do this whole job and have the paint not stick well. I think I need to degrease it now. Make sure I get a good bond to that primer. The primer is in really good shape, thankfully. So I'm using this Zepp industrial degreaser. Basically because this stuff was a reasonable price, and it's what I have. I'm sure there are other degreasers that are just as good or probably even better. So I think, and I hope, that the boom is going to be the hardest part of this paint job. It's just hard. It's got a lot of nooks and crannies and pipes and hoses and joints. The rest of it just seems like it's more wide open areas that'll be easier to prep and paint. Now this degreaser, they say to only leave on for 5 minutes. And you don't want to let it dry, and it's already started first thing in the morning, but it's already getting hot and the sun's on it, so gotta work quick. Ruh-roh. Well, Marge is coming through already. Look at that. Yep, that's when I discovered the crack that led to the welding repair that set me back more than a week on this paint job. That was a pretty epic struggle, and if you haven't seen that, you might enjoy seeing Marge kick a farmer's butt. But here's the results. I did get it fixed in the end, and now we're moving on with the paint job. All right, we are at the point that I thought I would be after the first day, over a week ago, on this paint job. Ospho, this is going to convert the rust iron oxide into iron phosphate, which is stable, doesn't rust, and you can paint over it. Everybody always asks. Yeah, Ace Hardware has the best deal. You can get it for like $30 for a gallon, which will cover a lot of area. I had this cylinder moved up and out of the way to do the welding job, and I still haven't put it back together because I wanted to paint under it before I did. You can see the rust all turns black as it's converted to iron phosphate. So I've got a new spray gun, and I'm using the 3M PPS2 paint system. Here I'm thinning it out with acetone, which is advised to do when you're going to spray it.
And that's my new paint gun. And we're going to use this throughout this video, and I will talk more about it later. I'm adjusting my air pressure to 29 psi, which was recommended in the manual. So it's at 29 psi when I'm actually using it. There's a lot of hose between the gun and this gauge, so it takes a while for it to equalize here. The first goal is just to get all the rusty stuff, especially where it's going to be tough to get to after the cylinder is down. I'm going to get all that primed and painted. I'm going to do this first, let that start drying, but then I'm going to go ahead and prime everything else that I've already done the Ospho on. I'm still figuring out this paint gun at this point, but immediately I like it. You can control how much paint is going in to the spray, and I've got it turned down really low right now so that I can be a little sloppy with it and it still won't make any runs. Compared to using a spray paint can, this thing is just awesome. It's so much easier to control. You can adjust it. It's like the nicest spray paint can you can imagine. And yes, I should be wearing a respirator. I was thinking, well, I'm outside, there's a little breeze, it won't be a problem, but I realized after using this for a little while that I really need a respirator. It really atomizes the paint, and I don't want to sit there and breathe that in for hours on end. Once that primer dries, I'm going to go ahead and paint the actual color on everything underneath that cylinder, and then I can finally put it back together. And you can probably tell why I'm trying to avoid the respirator. It is hot. I am painting in the shade and I am drenched with sweat. It's probably 93 degrees out here. Alright, so pretty much from right here down is done, except the very bottom, which is against the ground. I'm going to get that later when I have the boom in a different position. So now I can go ahead and work on painting the cylinder and everything underneath it, and then put this thing back together finally. Be able to get rid of this chain that I'm stepping over constantly. So you hold the trigger when it's upside down, it lets whatever is in here drain into the container. And then we can take that off of there. And I think what some people are saying is you should store it upside down, which kind of makes sense because the top is what's going to get dried out, and there's a screen in that lid there. Now it's all disposable, but while you have that submerged, it's not going to dry out and it'll still be usable. So I'm going to leave that like that. This is mineral spirits, so I'm going to put this on and take it outside and do a few sprays through it. And that will clean out the gun. We're ready for the next color, the actual paint color. So if you do a half trigger pull, it just does air, and if you pull a little further, it will allow whatever you're spraying to come through. That's all you have to do for color changes. This is ready for another color now. That's pretty sweet. And there's a little bit in there. I'm just going to wipe it out with a paper towel. So
So there's the pressure cup, there's the lid, has the screen in it, and then there's the disposable cup. So that is Case Power Yellow. That's the kind of yellow-orange that Case uses. It's different than cat yellow. And that's the original color. Look at that. That is some bright paint. Looks like they mixed it before they sent it to me. That's nice. Can I pour that in there without spilling it all over the place? Not too bad. Alright, so that is just over 500 mLs, so I need a little over 50 mLs of acetone. And I'm going to go ahead and stir that, and then we'll see how it looks. Yeah, it's a little bit too thick. Needs to be pretty watery. Yeah, that's better. And that's all there is to it. Putting quite a bit of it on. I might even turn the paint down a little bit so I don't get runs. Yeah, I like that. Now, I did go ahead and put some masking on the hoses. I just thought they would look really bad with this bright orange yellow paint on them. So you'll notice I'm still painting without a mask. This was the day that I figured out that I really need one. How did I figure it out? How do I explain this? Let's just say at the end of the day, I noticed something. I've seen yellow boogers before, but not that yellow. Harvey from the comment section sums up how I'm starting to feel about this job. Why did I agree to paint this thing? It's even going to need 2 coats. I'm going to go ahead and get a second coat on the areas that I really need it so that I can put this thing back together tomorrow. This video is sponsored by Element. Element is an electrolyte drink mix that has everything you need and nothing that you don't. You see me working out in the heat a lot in this video, and it's important that I replenish the electrolytes that I lose through sweating. Element has a science-backed ratio of electrolytes of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, so it's perfect for that. There's no junk, no sugars, no gluten, no fillers, you know, no ingredients that you can't pronounce. Yeah, I can read everything on there. It's weird. And it comes in many different flavors that are quite good. Some of my favorites are raspberry, watermelon, even chocolate caramel. They even have one called mango chili, which I didn't expect to like, but it's surprisingly good. I find myself looking forward to it like a daily treat, but not only that, it helps keep my energy up and keeps me productive, especially on these hot summer days. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free 8-count sample pack of their most popular flavors with any order. That's 8 single-serving sample packs free with any Element order. This is a great way to try out your favorite flavors, or even maybe share it with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/farmcraft. This offer is only available through my link, so go to drinklmnt.com/farmcraft. Now let's get back to work. On second thought, I hate painting anyway.
All right, you've had your break. Time to get her done.
All right, the color had me worried a little bit at first, but I'm good with it. Now that I really see it, it looks like a good match. This up here is all double coated, so tomorrow I can put that cylinder back together. Out of paint. Goodness gracious.
Here I'm adjusting for a wider fan. And now I'm opening up the paint a little bit more. So here you can probably tell I've turned the fan back down to shoot a more concentrated spot. This is where I preferred to paint most of the time, because there's just so many areas that I'm trying to reach into. It was nicer to have a more focused shot. And when I was doing wide open areas, it was easier just to kind of overlap them 50% and just leave it like it was instead of trying to readjust every time. I'm sure someone better with a paint gun would probably make a much larger use of the fan and be more efficient. But either way, this worked pretty darn well for me.
So I've got one coat on a whole bunch of stuff there. I've got 2 coats on everything up high. Now I'm going to go ahead and get 2 coats on everything I've done. It's kind of hard to, you kind of have to stay organized or just go by sight. Does it look good or not? I mean, it'll be fine. It's large Marge. Doesn't have to be that great. But let me go ahead and get this all second coated. Hopefully I'll only miss 50 or 60 spots. I mean, it is so hard to know where you've gotten and where you haven't.
When I say it's hard to know where you've gotten, of course you can see where it's yellow, but you'll think you have it all, and then you just change the angle that you're viewing it from, and you'll see 10 spots you missed.
All right, we have 2 coats on everything that I've painted so far. And it's using a ridiculous amount of paint. I've used about half a gallon. Looks like a hack job. I just wanted to verify that we still fit, and we do. So I cleaned this thing up and I painted the back side. The outside will be easy to paint at any time. So that's not going anywhere. And I've been thinking how much it would suck if I started trying to pull away and forget about that chain being attached. Let me pick the boom up a little bit and come forward with it so that I get some slack on that chain, and then I can take that out of there. Then we're going to extend the boom out and come back in so that I can reach everything easier, get the top easier, and we'll continue on with this never-ending paint job. Which I still hate you guys for, by the way.
And right after this, I developed a little hydraulic leak. Okay, I lied. That didn't happen. I had you there for a second though, didn't I?
It's no lower. I mean, if I put the thumb down, it would be a bit lower, but it's not really that much different. It's surprising. All right, see, this gives me good access to this and that whole area up there. And if I could get it down a little further, I could pull all the way in, and I'm under cover. I also have, there's an area here that I wasn't able to reach with it in the position it was in. So yeah, there's more I can paint now. I think what I'm going to do is just take this diagonal off. Should allow me to get this thing in here. But man, I keep underestimating how big it is. I really thought that if I extended it out and pulled in, that this would just all be down at standing level. But nope, we're still 13 feet in the air. Tucking down as low as it can get. Nice. It's at the same height. That is almost the same. Maybe a couple inches lower. That's crazy. See, all this stuff was tucked up right against the ground. Wow, look at that line. And yeah, it was hard to get. Now it's going to be easy to get, but I'm still going to be on a ladder. And of course I have some nasty water running out on my brand new paint job, but that's all that is. Some kind of funky water that was in there. Probably wouldn't have noticed it before, but now it stands out like a sore thumb. So I'm just going to hit some of the rough spots with sandpaper real quick on that big flat area and a little bit underneath. All right, I'm not worrying about that little grease hose there. Never see it. Now, I did Ospho the sides, but I don't think I Ospho'd the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now, and we'll have to come back to that once it's dry. A lot of steps. I cannot believe how long it has taken me to paint that. And I've gone through most of a gallon of paint. It's crazy. Missed the spot.
It does look good though.
So this part of the boom is outside and it's actually still a little wet from dew. So I think what I'm going to do is pull the excavator out, try to get the rest of it all washed and ready for rust inhibitor. This stuff's going to need some work. So let's see, I'm going to take that solar panel off. Well, that's interesting. My Ospho made some paint peel on that roof. I guess I'll go ahead and power wash that and we'll see how it looks after the fact. Yeah, there's moss and stuff on that. This is a never-ending job. I'm also running low on the power yellow paint. I probably have enough to finish the boom. I definitely don't have enough to finish. So at this point, I think the best thing to do is just to get the rest of the machine prepped and ready to go. It'd be nice to have a place indoors where you don't have to worry about weather messing up your paint job. Well, a place indoors big enough for Marge. That's kind of rare. I should say I'm glad I went with the original colors. This power yellow is actually rather orange, and what was there was so faded it really feels like I'm changing the color of the excavator, even though it is the original. And then all the brown just isn't going to show the dirt and the grime and everything nearly as much as black would. Certainly the army green and black is a cool idea, but once it gets dirty, it's going to look very dirty. The other thing is, so much of this machine is already brown. You know, I've already painted all of this. This is already painted brown. And I did work on the back that's painted brown, and inside the whole engine bay is painted brown. See, the inside of the final drives I already did. And I'll probably clean all that off and do it again, but it's just so much easier to stick with the original color instead of doing something new. Well, that took a long time, but the whole thing has been treated with Ospho.
I scraped these stickers off with a razor blade. That took a while, and then I had to work on getting the adhesive that was under there off. Nothing going fast on this job. I'll spare you all that, but it did finally come off.
That's my super wife over there. If you guys watched Ant's Pants, he's a good YouTube channel, pretty entertaining. And he's always, everyone in his family is super. It's his super sister and his super mom. He's funny. If you haven't seen him, you should go check him out. I really liked his restoring an old log cabin build. Super Wife's gonna help. Got all the windows taped off, and this thing is finally ready for primer everywhere. Now this side's gonna be in the sun soon, in spite of my little makeshift canopy. So I'm gonna have lunch and then I'm gonna come out here and get all the primer on this side.
And if you're wondering where it says case there above the counterweight, that's painted on, it's not a sticker.
So I've got a nice steady breeze coming over my shoulder here, and that's keeping me from needing to wear that horrible mask. Time for a refill. Man, I cannot believe how long this is taking me. But at least it's going to look good. This is the primer. Got in underneath. Got the counterweight. Got to get the counterweight. Everything's primed. Up top had a bunch of rust. That's all primed.
Looks done, right? Well, here it is from the other side. Okay, now it's done, although I'm sure there's still spots I missed. So this is further along on this never-ending boom that I've been painting for days, although when I think back on it, I had to clean it, I had to degrease it, I had to rinse it, then rust-proof it, then prime it, and then paint it twice. So yeah, it took a long time. And I am just about to run out of the first gallon of paint. The second gallon is here though, so I can roll on. And here I just changed to the second gallon. That color looks a little different. It gets darker as it dries, maybe that's all it is. So I noticed the new gallon was a lot lighter than the old one, and I had stirred it and then dumped half of it into here and mixed that up and have been spraying that. So I decided to come back and stir this more. I don't feel anything on the bottom, but it is darker. There's the difference of the two colors. Yeah, apparently I didn't stir it adequately. So what I'm going to do is mix all this up. I'm going to go ahead and thin that too to get ready for spraying, and I'm going to mix everything. I'm going to have to empty what's left in the sprayer out because it needs another coat anyway, so this won't be a problem. I just got to get it thoroughly mixed. Love painting. So after getting all that thoroughly mixed, here's the second coat going on. And thankfully it matches. I was worried I was going to be repainting some of this boom. It is big enough, and 2 coats, I don't want to repaint anything. Heck, I didn't want to do it the first time. So guess what, guys? The boom is done. Finally. Boom. I've got a little under a half gallon left. It might be too close to get 2 coats on there. Getting 2 coats is going to be tough. I might have to be a little light on the second coat. Yeah, I think that's alright. I think I can make that work. Going to use 2 full gallons of that yellow. That's crazy. Alright, we are shooting the yellow on the main body of the excavator today. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to do the inside of all these bars because I will forget them. I've got my clean shoes on so that I can walk up here and not mess up the prep job. Out of paint. So 1 can did the whole top, the front, and I already painted this on the other side and that. So it looks like 2 of these will paint the whole yellow back here. The boom was so much harder. Here's the deal. This is full, but that's all I have. That's all that's left. So I've turned the paint way down so that it's just going to do a light coat. I also thinned it a little bit more. And I'm not going to worry about the top so much. You really don't see that unless you're like working on it. And it got a pretty good coat on the first coat. So I'm just going to make sure that the coat looks even. And then I'm going to try to put more of it on the sides and everything where you really see it a lot. And then if I have any left over, I'll touch up some other areas. But I'm going to try to stretch this out. Buying another quart. This is Van Sickle paint, which is nice paint. I'm happy with it. But the quart costs $50. After shipping, I'm going to pay like $65 for another quart of this stuff. And I just don't really want to do that. I'll make sure that I get a good coat on the sides, everything that's really visible. I'm not going to trouble you with all that. Second coats are even more boring than first coats. I just kind of touched up the top where it needed it. I gave full coats to the sides, both sides, and then a full coat to the back. I even have a little bit left. I'll look at the top tomorrow after it's really dried and just see if there's anything I need to touch up. But with the walk around, I think I've gotten everything that's most visible.
I just sprayed some mineral spirits through this, wiped that out, and you'd think you're going to brown, but you'd be wrong. We are going back to primer. Yay. So remember all the cover plates that I took off of this thing literally last year? Yeah, they need work too. No, it's not wussy pink. It's leather brown. Alright, I have this is actually primer can. It's been sitting out and dried for days, so I can use that. It's very tough to deal with a full gallon, so I'm going to put half of it in here. So now I want to dilute this. I'm going to start out with like 10%. Comes to like 150 mLs of acetone. Still looks a touch thick to me. I mean, I'm no expert on it. I just know that if it's too thick, it's a little more, it just doesn't spray as nice. So thinning it a little more, and you just kind of get a sense on how it flows off the stick, and that's not quite watery enough. So let's do another 50. It's close. I think it's still just a touch thick. I guess this is one of the nice things. You're working on an old excavator. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm sure the auto body guys have this down to a science and are much more exacting with it, but for what I'm doing, this is pretty forgiving. Yeah, I think that's good. Runs off the stick, and I can actually hear it in the paint when it... Yeah. And now I have a whole half gallon mixed up. I can just dump it in and not have to like mix every time I put it in the cup. Now I left my gun overnight with mineral spirits, and I left it in this position so that the mineral spirits would be down in there and keep anything from drying out. So you flip it over, pull the trigger so it lets air in and lets the stuff drain out. And you can see there's still some primer in there. Bit of paper towel. So yeah, I've got 4 pressure cups. Allows me to do 3 different colors, and then one for the mineral spirits to clean in between. And that seems to work really well. I don't know if I'm doing it exactly the way it's supposed to be done, but this is certainly working for me. Alright, that is ready to paint. What you doing, Buttercup? What you doing, Dozer? I'm watering this young poplar tree. It's been really dry, which has been great for the excavator, but not so good for the grass growth. We rotationally graze all winter, so I really need the grass to grow before winter, or we're gonna have to get rid of some cattle. So now I have the tricky task of painting the brown near the yellow. So I'm right towards the end, but things just got harder. Can't just paint it like I did before, because you can see all the yellow overspray that's on the brown. Let's see if we can get this boom covered up. I've got those pretty well covered up. When I get down to the bottom, I've got this piece of cardboard I'm going to move around and just, you know, be able to spray the area without getting it on the yellow. That's the idea. So we're going to start with the lid there.
A lot of people suggested that I paint the cab roof white because it would reduce the heat gain from the sun, and I may do that in the future, but for now I'm just going to put brown on it. Remember, when I'm using this, I raise the door, and the door is between me and the cab roof, so I'm not sure how much difference it'll actually make when I'm in the machine and operating it.
That's all done. All right, so up here, I'm just going to try to hold a piece of cardboard like that. Hopefully be able to get a nice clean line without overspray. Good enough. I had to come down far enough that I'll be able to spray that without needing to cover that. I can angle downward there and just continue on. Surprise rainstorm last night. Good for the grass. Not so great for the paint job, but it'll dry out. I was worried the wind was going to kick up and really destroy this thing, so I put it all the way down and then I tied it back. So my first impression of this, I am a little disappointed with the brown on this door. I mean, obviously, I knew I wasn't prepping it that great, but it really shows all the spots. But at the same time, I'm fine with it. It's still a 40-year-old excavator. It looks a lot better, and I'm not willing to do any more work than I have. I got my old friend. One brown thumb. Doesn't sound real good for a farmer. Supposed to have a green thumb, right? Man, it's so obvious I'm a dad. Sorry. Why am I not painting the bucket? Well, the real reason is because I'm lazy. But I mean, it's just going to get all ripped up, and yeah, I'm just not going to. And I'm also not going to paint the underside of the thumb. Same reason. This is large Marge. That's good enough. So this paint's been on here since I made that panel. And just to make sure I get good adhesion since it's fully cured, I'm just going to sand it a little bit. So other than touch-ups and Like doing the idler wheels, I have to move the machine back. All the major painting just completed. How about that?
So I did take the remaining yellow that I have and go up top and second coat it all. You can really see where I had just touched it up after the first coat. The second coat was very glossy and the first coat was not. So a second coat on the whole thing is going to make it look a lot better. And I actually had enough to do it all.
There might be enough in there to do a touch-up if I find something small that needs it. Alright, so this is an Astro pneumatic Euro Pro HE 103. See right there, it's got the 1.3 millimeter and it has a 0.6 liter plastic cup that comes with it. Now, obviously I changed that to the adapter for this 3M PPS system, but if you only want to do one color, you know, this would work, but then when you want to change colors you have to clean this entire thing out, the gun and all, and change to a different color. So that was pretty inconvenient to me, so we got rid of that. After using this system, I do like this 3M paint system that allows you to easily change colors and clean everything up. So this, obviously I used the yellow in. I just took the cup and the lid and threw them away. Now I can put a new cup in. I cleaned up the threads a little bit. Get a new lid with a new cap. And this thing's ready for a different paint color. There's no chance of contamination or anything. It's pretty easy, pretty quick. I will leave links to all of this in the description. The paint gun was somewhere around 90 bucks, I think. It's well built, it's all metal construction, seems like a good gun, works very well. So this knob controls your paint flow. This knob controls the size of the fan that comes out. And then this is a fine adjust for your air pressure in, which is supposed to be 29 psi. Says it right there on the side. Really very easy to use. You get used to it really quickly. So I bought a system with the disposable cups, the disposable lids and caps as one unit, and then the pressure cups separately from that. These come in pairs. I bought 2 pairs, so I got 4 pressure cups, which allowed me to do 3 different colors. And that's it. I'll leave a link to all of that in the description. Not a sponsor. I bought all this with my own money, but I'm pretty happy with it and would recommend. It went very well, especially considering it was my first time using it. So one thing I'll be curious about, because you can reach underneath or in the side and push on that flexible plastic bag, if I do that, I can push the paint all the way up and get rid of all the air, and then put the cap on. Store that upside down. I think that would store like that for a pretty long time. Barely made it on the primer. That's 5 quarts of primer I've been through. See what I'm talking about? Missed the spot. Same with the other side. So the final tally, all I have left is this much brown, which isn't that much. The primer is almost empty there. So this is what I used. I used 1.25 gallons of primer, 1 gallon of brown, they're all empty, and 2 gallons of yellow. Used every drop of that. So every gallon of paint has about 33, based on the surface area that it can cover, 33 cans of spray paint. So this is 66 cans of yellow spray paint. And this is 66 cans of primer and brown plus another 8. And that comes out to 140 spray cans that I would have gone through had I bought those. Those things at like $8 a pop, which is a good price for them. You're talking about like over $1,200 in spray cans. Yeah, it was actually cheaper to buy the paint and the spray gun and all that equipment by a good bit. Yeah, that looks pretty sharp with the black hoses. I'm glad I did that. The lighting's not the best, but the sheen up here looks much more even. Definitely looks better with that second coat on. Watch your feet. Well, I forgot to hit record, but I got it in. Can you see my welding job up there? That was actually the side that there was no crack showing on the outside. And you can see why it was so difficult to discover. That's 14 feet, and it's higher than that by at least a few feet. So it's 17 feet. Probably 6 meters up there. Keep forgetting to rehook this grease hose back up. All right, this is the hydraulic oil cooler. There is a fabric shroud that directs the air past the engine bay and out the bottom. And then there's this big band clamp. This shroud still looks quite dirty. I have power washed this thing probably 4 or 5 times. It's better than it was. Good enough for Marge. So now I've got a cover plate that goes over the oil drain. Right above that is the hydraulic oil tank. And that hole is because there's a hydraulic test port right there. Yeah, I'm using the same old piece of plywood that was here when I bought it. I mean, it works. There's just no reason for me to put a bunch of money and time and energy into fixing something that's not broken. This is this light-duty piece of fiberglass covering with these huge M14 bolts on it. Why? I have no idea. We are all buttoned up. All the covers are on. Shroud is on. Main cover plate is on. Huh. There's like nothing left to do. There you go, guys. The paint job is done, thank goodness. That took me 2 solid weeks of work. Everything's always more work than you expect, but man, that was a lot of work. Anyway, I have to say, now that it's done, you guys pressuring me into it, I'll grudgingly say thank you. It looks pretty awesome, and I don't think I would have done it otherwise, so yeah, I got to give you that one. It needs decals, obviously. The decals that were originally on this machine are not available. A very kind viewer who happens to be the owner of a printing company that makes decals reached out to me, and he is going to be making some custom decals for this for free, but I don't have them yet, and I didn't want to wait on putting the video out, so we will be putting those on in the next video that Marge is in, which is coming. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.